So I'm going to start the webinar now, and if our panelists would like to join us, we've got almost 100 people have joined us already, and I know we've got a lot more people waiting in the wings there who are just coming through the virtual doors. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Lorna Titley. I'm part of Quaynote Communications, and on behalf of all of us here, I'm delighted to be hosting today's webinar. So welcome to this, our latest update on yachts, ports and travel restrictions. For those of you that don't know the pack drill by now, we will be taking questions at the end of this session. So you may see there's a Q&A facility. And if you have any questions for the panel during the discussion today, then please put those questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get through to them hopefully at the end of this session. We'll do our best to answer your questions. We will, if you miss any part of today's session, we will actually be recording the webinar. And once we have the approval of our distinguished panel here, then we will make that available for you at the latest, the early part of next week. So bear with us there. In the interest of brevity, I'm not going to read out lots of bios today, but you can find everyone's biographies on our website at www.quaynote.com. You can also find at our website more information about Quaynote, about our event management services and our marketing and PR consultancy. So please do reach out to us if you'd like more information about those. In the meantime, however, it's my very great pleasure to hand you over to Jean-Philippe Maslin from Richemont Delviso Avocats. And Jean-Philippe is joined by a great lineup of panelists who we're really delighted to welcome back today. But I will let him introduce everybody and introduce the topics today. Thank you very much for your attendance, and hope you enjoy the session. Thanks very much. Jean-Philippe, over to you.
Thanks, Lorna. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending this seminar. I've been given the very easy and gratifying task of moderating the seminar. Easy because when you have such a good panel of experts, everything is really easy to do. We thought we were going to organize this in a bit of a summary of the current regulations that would affect yachts and their entry into ports. First off, on the technical side, which would relate to the crews, the surveyors. How do you go on about relieving the crews? How are you able to get your surveyors in place to do the surveys? All these issues that we will be touching on the professional technical side. And then we will be also updating you on the tourism side, which is how do you get your guests and charterers on site? Are you able to charter? Are you able to navigate freely at this time? At the end of the seminar, we'll have a little bit of a discussion on the expected changes and regulations and the recent news in its jurisdiction. So hopefully it will be interesting. On the first part, so for the entry of the yachts, crews and the technical crews, the experts and surveyors themselves, I'll be starting with Ezio on this, Ezio Vannucci, a partner at Rowland, for the Italian side of the matter. So Ezio, could you please update us on these entry conditions? Do you have restrictions on who can enter? When can they enter? Any EU, non-EU separations? Any restrictions based on place of origin or on work to be carried out? So Ezio, please go ahead.
Good afternoon to all, and thanks, Jean-Philippe. This first comment will be focused on crew member, surveyor, workers, and so on. The very, very interesting news that we have in Italy is that a new law is in force from yesterday, March 2. That is a new DCPM, as we call it, during all this period of COVID, of pandemic situation. And this new decree is valid from the next March 6th to April 6th. The provision and the law and the rules containing in these documents is very news from the past, based on the fact that in any case the Italian authorities intends from one side to prevent all this pandemic situation, but in the meantime not stop the business, not stop the movement of the people. So it's very important to read carefully all the new article of this decree. I confirm you that there is a restriction in the free circulation within Italy, unless for business reason, with the different restriction depending on the color given to the region. In Italy, we have now 4 different colors: white, where you can do all you want; yellow, that is similar to white; and then there is orange and red. What is important to underline for workers and crew members, that there is a very important difference for people that coming from Schengen area and people that coming from other area. What is important is to check the exact country from which the worker, the consultant, the surveyor coming and declare at the arrival in Italy, because there are differences depending on a specific annex of the decree that is in exactly the annex 20. This is the annex where there are 4 different points, and based on the destination where the location where the individual is based, change the rule to be respected at the moment in which you arrive in Italy. This means that it's not mandatory the quarantine, so the 14 days in Italy is the quarantine, but in some for example, for all the country that is inside the Schengen area, is necessary only if COVID test during the 48 hours before they enter in Italy.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ezio, for a very clear explanation on this. I'll be turning to Janet Xanthopoulos, who is head of yachts at Rosemont. Janet will be presenting the same regulations in force in Monaco and France, with a very sunny background as usual in Monaco. It's not an easy task to present these regulations, given as a French lawyer, I know the nightmare of regulations we have in France, but I'm sure Janet will be able to give us a very clear presentation. Janet, to you.
Thanks, Jean-Philippe. Well, I'll try. It's true that I think probably it will be much easier in Italy to get quick answers. In France and Monaco, it's quite a nightmare. Probably better answers given in Monaco. Well, the situation is, just briefly on the situation, the situation is not good. The numbers are picking up in Monaco and in France. Probably you have heard that in France now we were expecting a strict lockdown. The lockdown for the time being, and at least for the next week, is just during the weekends. We will see it later, but the air borders have been closed. By my understanding is the maritime borders are still open. So what you can and cannot do with the yachts, and yes, Jean-Philippe, there's a difference between yachts arriving from EU countries, Schengen area, or non-EU, non-Schengen area. The difference is that if you've come from an EU country or from a Schengen area, you just need, as the situation back in June when we discussed, to submit a maritime declaration of health 48 hours prior to arrival to the maritime police, and of course, declare any suspected or confirmed COVID case to the COVID center. Now, if the yacht comes from a non-Schengen area, you will be required for all the crew and the guests to have a PCR test, negative PCR, test done 72 hours prior to arrival. Of course, sometimes on a yacht, this is not possible. And if this is the case, there will be a quarantine. This has been confirmed in France, not really in Monaco, not really in France. And in France, this needs to be checked. But in Monaco, the situation is that there will be quarantine. There will be a new PCR test done upon arrival. And it's the COVID center who will authorize all the guests and crew to leave the boat after a negative PCR test has been obtained. So this is the situation just on the yacht side.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Janet. I imagine you also need to respect the curfews that are in place, notably in France. Do you have the same curfew in Monaco?
Okay, so the difference between Monaco and France. So as I said, numbers are not good. Numbers are increasing, even that despite the fact that the vaccine campaign has started. But of course, as you know, this is very slow. So Monaco and France, we have curfews. Curfews in Monaco is 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. In France is 6 p.m. in the evening to 6 a.m. in the morning. In Monaco, there's no lockdown. In France, lockdown for the time being during the weekend. But I mean, we're fearing that there'll probably be some stricter restrictions in the near future. Hopefully not, but all will depend. The bars are closed in both countries. Shops, hotels are open in Monaco and in France. Of course, you need to respect social distancing measures, face masks, now the usual. The restaurants, this is a big difference. And actually, you still have people making for 500. You used to have people making 500 kilometers for France to go to the restaurants in Monaco. Now, this has been restricted because this participated to the increase of numbers in Monaco during Christmas. So restaurants closed in France completely and restaurants open in Monaco, but only now for breakfast, for lunch. And they really check is reserved only to Monaco residents and to people working in Monaco. So these are the main difference between Monaco and France. Also now there has been a little war between Monaco and France. Until last week, we couldn't go out in France without having a PCR test. Now, if we go to the Alpes-Maritimes, we need less than 24 hours, no need of a test. If we go more than 24 hours, we need to have a PCR test done prior to 70 hours before departure. And if we're going to go beyond the Alpes-Maritimes, we need to have a PCR test from the first minute we leave Monaco.
Okay. As always, the little war between France and Monaco.
And I'd say it has been a real war, actually. It has been a day-to-day thing to follow on the net and on the press.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Janet. I also share your pessimism regarding the upcoming measures in the coming weeks. The rumors are not reassuring for France, at least. So we'll probably be facing localized lockdowns again, probably with additional restrictions. So I'm sure you'll be able to update everyone. Turning now to Alison Vassallo, partner at Fenech. Could you please also give us the point of view in Malta, that is, which restrictions are in place and how can you bring a professional expert or surveyor to Malta?
Okay, so hi everyone, and here we are again, sort of, next round. Well, in Malta, as we know, we've never been on an official lockdown, and at the moment we aren't. Unfortunately, we seem to be facing a spike in cases. In fact, yesterday we had the highest record that we've ever had. So, I mean, everywhere is open except bars, restaurants are open, shops are open, etc., and there are no curfews. We expect that the Prime Minister will be announcing some restrictions over the coming hours, but I personally doubt whether this would translate in any form of lockdown. So it will very probably relate to increasing fines, and perhaps restricting restaurant hours, etc. Now, as regards entry into Malta, therefore, since July of last year, the airports and the ports have been open for commercial operations. And when we speak of yachts entering Malta, it very much depends on where the yacht is coming from and where the persons on board are coming from. So sort of it's a two-system analysis. And the restrictions are divided similar to what Ezio was explaining in colors. So there are the green list, which doesn't require people coming from these countries to undergo any formalities apart from a health declaration. There's an amber list, which would require a negative test conducted in the previous 72 hours prior to boarding or arrival in Malta. And the countries which are in the red list would require people coming from these countries to spend at least 14 days in a safe corridor, so in a country which is considered to be safe. So it all depends on where the crew are flying in from or where the crew are coming from when they join the boat prior to arrival in Malta. In practice, yachts are allowed to come in alongside. Requests would be made on a case-by-case basis by the agent in charge, and the crew would need to remain on board unless they can provide. Generally, the general rule is a negative COVID test. And of course, if they're coming from a red listed country, one would need to warn them before, ideally, that they would have had to quarantine in another jurisdiction. So that is the situation so far, Jean-Philippe. I think that what's important is to check prior to arrival of the yacht, really.
Thanks, Alison. Colored system, just like Italy. So that's
Yes.
another version. I think all EU countries each are trying to come up with their own version of colored or of regional lockdown. So turning to Miguel and Serra now, partner at Albors Galiano, could you please give us your intake on these restrictions as they stand for the professional side in Spain, please? You are,
Miguel, you have to unmute.
Muted. Perfect.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Jean-Philippe. Well, in Spain, there is no yacht restrictions. In fact, if yachts are coming from with professional crew at any port of call in Spanish territory, it is true that the situation is quite similar to that mentioned by Janet in France. Maritime Declaration of Health must be filed prior to arrival of the yacht to the first port of call in Spanish territory, and a PCR negative test prior to the last 72 hours from arrival in Spain must be declared. If, for example, the sailing of the yacht is 3 or 4 days until it reaches Spain and they do not have a PCR negative test in the last 72 hours, they just have to wait in the vessel, in the yacht, until the proper authorities, the port authorities, contact with the authorized entities who perform that test, and then they can, the charters can come ashore and go down, make some tourists, etc. Regarding the seafarers, well, you know that non-EU nationals to enter the Schengen area, etc., if they are seafarers in the exercise of their work activity, they can enter the country, and if not, if they are traveling to incorporate the crew of the yacht, etc., they will be treated as any charter, as any guest, but we will talk about that, about the entry condition of guests and charters later. So maybe I stop here then.
Thanks, Miguel Ángel. We have 2 further jurisdictions to go through. I'll be starting with Jennifer Timinis for the Greek side, Director at OCEDA. Could you please give us your input on this?
So for the time being, yachts can enter Greece if they have permission from the port authorities, they can go into the marina depending where they're coming from. So Schengen and EU countries are fine, and then there are various other countries, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. I mean, UK, Israel. We've actually got a good thing going with Israel because our Prime Minister signed, we'll come on to that later, but he signed the vaccination certificate with Israel. So there's a good passageway with Israel going on right now. On what they can actually do, it's fairly limited because they can come into Greece subject to them having only crew on board, having permission from the port authorities, and also their crew must stay on board for 7 days quarantine and can only disembark once they've had their COVID test. So it's fairly limited, and they can also attend shipyards. They can come into ports and marinas either on the mainland or Rhodes, Crete and Corfu. So main entry points, and then, or they can go into shipyards again, provided they can, they have evidence from the shipyard that they're going to have works carried out, and again, subject to quarantining on board. Other than that, experts wanting to come in, survey boats, etc., that's quite difficult because with the 7-day quarantine, I mean, it's going to cost the client sending his survey to sit in a hotel. We've got hotels open for the time being. We haven't had restaurants and shops for months now, since sort of early November. The shops are open briefly over Christmas. Greece has been very conservative with its measures. It's not really an indication of the numbers we've got. We're quite, I mean, we fared very well on the COVID side. And to be quite honest, it's probably a good approach in the sense we don't have the medical system to let this get out of control. And also it's a good build up towards the summer because come May, June, obviously all of these measures will be relaxed significantly on the basis that, you know, 20% of our national income depends on tourism. So for now, it's really boats that need to come to Greece, which will come to Greece because for works or just because they're returning to home port.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. So there is a mandatory quarantine of 7 days, even if you're a professional, to get in Greece. Okay, that's a change from the other jurisdictions.
You come in and self-isolate unless you don't have somewhere to self-isolate. Like they can, we've had owners self-isolating on their boats here. I mean, foreign owners who keep their boats in Greece, they can self-isolate on board.
Okay, perfect. We have a quick question from the audience before we turn to Croatia, following up on Greece. Can yachts enter Greece from Albania and Turkey?
The borders remain closed. And I'm not positive, even though I'm positive that a number of the measures will be either dropped or reduced significantly. On that front, I'm not positive that that measure will be lifted, especially in respect of Turkey. I'm hoping for Albania, but Turkey, perhaps also due to political reasons, I think it'll be a while before the border opens with Turkey, but let's see.
Well, we were talking about a Cold War between France and Monaco, a bit of a warmer war between Greece and Turkey, unfortunately.
A bigger war, I think, yeah.
Unfortunately. Turning to our last panelist on this, Maja Ban, founder of MYS Yachting. Could you give us your opinion on this as it is going on in Croatia, please?
First of all, if I can just say hello to everybody and thank you for joining us on this day. Jean-Philippe, thank you for your question. So regarding Croatia, I will have to say, luckily, we are on a positive side and things in Croatia with the COVID are pretty much at this moment under control. On the 1st of March, we actually start to ease our measures. I'll go back to this technical side of yachting and crew being able to come. Croatia is open basically for all the boats at the moment. Just now on the 1st of March, new regulation regarding cruise ships also came in, which means now the cruise ships are also allowed to cruise to Croatia. When it comes to who is allowed, crew basically can come to Croatia without needing any PCR test, where guests and others will talk about later have some restrictions. However, if I may say, at the moment, all the EU countries that are on a green list, let's say, which are very few, unfortunately, crew can come without any restrictions, like pre-COVID situation. The same thing is also for the EU country crew that comes from other EU countries, so crew can freely come, join the boat and do their work. When it comes to surveyors, that will depend a little bit from where they're coming. Again, if they're coming from the EU, countries that are in green zone, they can travel freely. If they're coming from the red zone, they will have to have a PCR test. If the PCR test is not valid or a person doesn't have it, a PCR can be done in Croatia and immediately at their arrival. Until the results come, the person can self-isolate in the either boat or accommodation that they have. Everybody coming from the third country, so outside of EU, from the technical end, as well needs to have PCR. So at the moment, crew coming from the EU does not need PCR. Everybody else coming to join the boat should have PCR. It can be done also in Croatia, self-isolation till the results, which usually come in 24 or 48 hours, can be self-isolating themselves. So this is pretty much at the moment, which means anybody who would like to come and do the shipyard work or come to stay in Marina, prepare themselves for the season, can freely come with this PCR, keeping in mind for the technical side. I mean, personnel, okay. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Maja.
You're welcome.
It is good to see that in all the countries we've been talking about, the effects of the International Labour Organization treating seafarers as key workers has really come into effect and allows these seafarers and professionals of the maritime world to come and go with limited restrictions. Everyone recalls it was really not the case at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had lots of issues with crew members being stuck in certain jurisdictions, unable to get home or to be relieved or to carry out their work in any case. So it is good to see that there's a positive change on that note, and we no longer have an abandonment of seafarers, but a real participation in the economy and the possibility for them to go around and exercise their work with limited restrictions. We will now turn on to the tourism side of things to discuss about the possibilities to organize the charters, the possibilities to navigate between countries with guests on board. I will try to again address this on a jurisdiction basis. So Alison, Vassallo, if you could please give us your update on this, on the guests and on the navigation for touristic reasons in Malta, please.
Okay, so I mean, pretty much the principles are the same that I explained for the crew. So the system is exactly the same process. One would need to check, for example, in practice, to give you an example, this morning I received a call from a client who has crew flying in from the Caribbean who wish to join a yacht coming to Malta that's being carried as cargo. So the questions I asked him were, where are they going to fly to? Because then we need to see whether it's a green or an amber country. But if they're coming from the Caribbean, then they still need to spend quarantine and a safe corridor, of course, because it's not enough to fly to a safe corridor and fly to Malta the next day. Otherwise, everyone would be, trying to find a loophole in those rules. So it all depends on the origin of the traveler, how long he had been in that place of origin, and whether a test or quarantine would be necessary. Once we go through that process, then it's simply a matter of the yacht, of course, coming to Malta, and there are no restrictions to navigation. So once all the safety requirements are in place and the health authorities have cleared entry, then there is absolutely no hindrance to any charters commencing from Malta at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Alison. Jennifer, could you please give us also your position and the position in Greece on the tourism and the possibility for guests to be on board yachts navigating in Greece, please?
Time being, no boats are navigating in Greece unless they're on their way to a shipyard. So it's pretty, I mean, they can stay on board perhaps, but again, it's really owners coming to see their boats perhaps from abroad who are happy to self-quarantine for 7 days, because otherwise, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. But like I said earlier, I think this is all over conservative measures in order to allow the season to take off okay. For now, I mean, you've got a 7-day quarantine period. You've got to fill in a special form 48 hours before you travel, a PLP form. And you've got to have, obviously, a PCR COVID test, negative test within 72 hours of arriving. And if you're a UK citizen, you also have to have another PCR test following the 7-day period of self-quarantining. So, okay. Yeah, it's not the time to be chartering in Greece, but it's not the season yet. I'm still positive.
Hopefully it will get better within the next 2 months. It sure is not an optimistic outlook so far, but we will probably be getting there at some point. Miguel Ángel, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Spanish view on this. I saw recently in the news that you were discussing the possibilities also of charters starting from Melilla as an alternative with an optimization of the tax on those charters. Could you please give us your presentation on how are guests generally treated when they're on yachts in Spain, and how would a yacht starting from that new destination of Melilla be treated, and how the guests on board will be treated as well, please?
Yes. Yes, for sure, Jean-Philippe. Let's see, the issue in Melilla is a new regulation that we have been implementing with the Port Authority there in Melilla, taking advantage of the main characteristics of such territory, which is outside the VAT, the customs, and the customs territory. So there is no VAT there, but the rule to apply the local tax there, which is called IPSI, IPSI, is of a very similar nature to that of VAT, and the tax rate is 0.5%, and the rule is the place of delivery of the yacht. So when the yacht departs from Melilla, IPSI will be applicable at 0.5% on the charter fees, which is in the process to be reduced to 0.1% in a very short term, will be available for this summer season. Therefore, this is a great advantage, but must be complemented with the cancellation of the use and enjoyment rule, because if we depart from Melilla and pay 0.1% VAT or IPSI tax on the charter fees, but when entering Spanish mainland waters or the Balearics, we are taxed during our stay at 21% VAT, then there is no issue with that. So we have discussed with the port authorities in Melilla and with the tax authorities in Madrid to cancel the use and enjoyment rule, which is something that is allowed by the directive, to not be applicable when the yacht departs from Melilla or also Ceuta and the Canary Islands. But we have been centering in Melilla because was the one who take the charge of the study, the analysis, etc. But is applicable also to the city of Ceuta and the Canary Islands.
Okay, thanks a lot, Miguel. We have lots of questions on the chat. Most of these will be addressed by the end of the seminar on the second portion relating to vaccinations and the current upcoming shows. So let's just finish with that first part, and then we'll be moving on to answer hopefully these questions and any further questions you have. Maja, could you please also give us the take on Croatia on that specific part, please?
Maja, you need to unmute your microphone.
Yeah. I was just looking for it. Thank you. Yeah, again, go back to my previous speech, we are very much in positive at the moment in Croatia, which is good and optimistic, and we really do hope it stays like that. So at the moment, Croatia again is open. We really never were in a proper lockdown, as we can hear and see what's happening in Western Europe, luckily. Now, from the 1st of March, we ease some new measures, which means now the bars and restaurants are open for terraces. So bars and restaurants can work if they have a terrace. To go is always possible. Hotels are open. The ones who decide to stay open, of course, keeping in mind that tourism is not booming. But we want to be positive. By the summertime, the situation is going to even more improve, and we're not going to see anything worse than last year, when we really did have a positive situation and we were open for tourism. Like Jennifer said, we heavily depend on tourism, and yachting and nautical tourism showed that it's a very safe way of traveling. So right now, like last year, owners are free to come to join their boats, check their boats. Charter clients, not the charter season has started yet, but still, if they want to come, are free to come, keeping all in mind where they're coming from. So if they're coming from the EU, from the red zone, PCR tests will be required. Everybody else coming from third countries will be required CPR test negative. If I can just add one thing that I forgot to mention in my previous answer, is that we have a couple of countries that are in a special zone at the moment. That's a UK, South Africa, Tyrol, which is a part of Austria actually, then Zanzibar and Brazil. Those countries, though, have a special regulation, which means even the seafarers, so the crew, if they're coming to Croatia, besides having negative PCR tests, will have to quarantine for 14 days. There is a possibility to shorten this quarantine on the 7th day if they take a test on their own, of course, expense in Croatia, and the test comes negative. So please keep that in mind for the crew as well. Everybody else, again, if they decide to come to Croatia, either for leisure, for tourist reasons or business reason, will only be required CPR tests. Keep in mind also, please, that we still need to follow measures, safety measures, distancing, wearing the masks in public and indoor. There are no still clubs open, of course. There's no some major events and happenings that gather a lot of people. But, if you want to come, let's say early April, if everything stays the same and would like to cruise with your yacht, this will be, as of now, possible.
Okay, thanks, Maja. That's at least good news.
Thank you.
Ezio, a final update on this point before we end with Monaco, of course, and France. Your update on Italy regarding the possibility for guests and for navigation to take place.
Yes, Jean-Philippe. So first of all, the movement of the vessel from port outside Italy to an Italian port, or a movement between Italian ports for refit of business activities or reason or relocation without a guest on board is allowed, but this is also allowed during last pandemic period. The very, very interesting news contained in the new decree that will be in force next March 6 is regarding the tourist. Why? Because now in the new decree there is a clear confirmation that tourism is allowed from people coming from Schengen area. So if, for example, and when we talk about the tourist, also charter is part of the tourist business. So if a yacht coming from a Schengen, a yacht with guests on board, come from a Schengen area and reach a region in Italy where there are not restrictions based on the color of the region. So you remember there are white, yellow, orange, and red. And for example, if this yacht will reach Sardinia, that currently is a white color, there is not a restriction. So what is necessary is to focus on the itinerary of the charter. Is necessary to focus on the country from which the vessel arrive, and based on the new decree, I should say that it's possible to do charter in Italy, but all depends on the region where the charter will be performed, because maybe that you should close the itinerary of the charter only to one reason, or to because, for example, Tuscany now is orange, and for sure it's not possible to reach for a charter. But in the meantime, you can do a charter in Sardinia. Please remember this is in force from March 6th. On another point regarding cruise ship, there is an appropriate clause in the new decree, that is the Article 5.3, that allow foreign cruise ship to reach Italy and to perform these business activities also in the Italian port, at the condition that there is an appropriate protocol on board, and this protocol is the Annex 1.7 of the new decree. That is an international protocol between for all cruise ship that should be for sure respected by the owning company, the shipping company. Latest information that I think that is very important in any movement of yachts from one port to another, depending also if it's only for a business or relocation, business purpose, so a refit or repositioning of the yacht, is important to inform in advance the health maritime authorities, because in any case, in some area, maybe there are some local restriction. Is very important before reach the new port to be in contact with the professional maritime agents and inform through these maritime agents the appropriate health authorities.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ezio. Janet, your comments on this to close this first part of the seminar. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so we will be addressing the questions immediately afterwards, and I will be asking from everyone their small comments on the latest updates. So Janet, to you to close this first part of the seminar, please.
Okay, so I'll try to be short. I think I replied already for yachts movements and for maritime borders. Now, as far as air borders are concerned, this has closed. So it means that if you want, the only way you can come actually from a non-EU country, non-Schengen area, is for compelling reasons. And of course, crew, if they have a Siemens book and a derogatory international certificate. Now, so if you come from a non-Schengen area and you can justify a compelling reason, you will need, as mentioned by all, to have a PCR test 72 hours prior. You will need to provide a sworn statement that you have not been affected by COVID or not been in contact with people who had COVID for the 14 days prior to departure. you need to confirm as well that you accept to go in quarantine and self-isolate upon your arrival and have a new PCR test done after your arrival. So this is a position fairly probably the same as the other countries. Now in Monaco, because I'm covering also Monaco, you are not allowed, I mean, if you come from outside the Schengen area, you're allowed to come to Monaco only if you are a Monaco resident, work in Monaco, and if you want to stay more than 24 hours, again, PCR test, and you need to have a compelling reason. So I'm afraid it's quite restricted for the moment, but I think that this will be the situation for at least the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Janet. So it is good to see that there are restrictions, but there's a possibility to do some limited charters as long as you organize them well and organize them well in advance. So it's good news for the summer season. Greece is a bit more restrictive on this, but maybe with the coming of the summer season, it will ease up. A topic I wanted to discuss with Jennifer as part of our closing comments is, as you touched on, the issue of the vaccines. The EU Commission has been discussing lately the green passport, the green vaccines passport, to allow a lowering of the restrictions for people who have proof that they've been vaccinated or have received shortly a PCR test. There's also a discussion regarding a possible electronic version of this. I think Greece is at the forefront of that discussion, notably with Israel, as you touched on. Could you please elaborate on this a little bit, Jennifer? And please, comments must be as short as possible because I want to be able to best run through the various questions we have remaining on the chat.
I'll also tuck in one of the questions then, which sort of, I think it lines up with the vaccination point. Okay, so Greece is pushing very much for the vaccine passports at EU level. There's some resistance, and France and Germany feel it's discriminatory. I mean, I don't think it is on the basis you can always come and have your test instead, have a PCR test instead, or if you don't want to share your data, you can have a test instead. To enter. It's just an alternative to testing as such, rather than it's to make things hassle-free and travel easier. So it's definitely something we're pushing for. In respect to the questions about Americans being able to come to Greece, last year this was a big problem. This year we're hoping that we're going to find ways to resolve it, because the measures will be lifted in May, definitely. They can't afford, the country can't afford not to have a busy tourist season. But of course, on the yachting side, the Americans are huge on the charter business side. Now, Biden yesterday said that by end May, all adults will have access to vaccinations. So that was an interesting development. If that does go forward and they do get vaccinated, I'm sure that the Greeks will be sort of the forerunners to say, come, you're very welcome. But I think it will be very much based on whether they're vaccinated or not at this stage. Other than that, I mean, we've got other countries which are okay. You can come in from, if you're a permanent resident of Russia, which is encouraging. Last year, we didn't have that. And like, it's still very early. All these, we haven't had, our measures have been so much more stricter than the rest of Europe from the outset, whereas our numbers have been far less in comparison. So I think it's a bit of a different approach in order to build up to the summer season. So that's it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jennifer. We are being swamped with questions, so we'll try to address them as much as possible. Maybe we'll run out. If there's any questions we haven't addressed, feel free to ask each of the panelists directly. You can find their bios on the website, so you can ask them these questions. As you've touched on, Jennifer, the issue with the US market and US travel is huge for yachting, given the importance of the US economy in the yachting business. Janet, could you please give us a little bit your thoughts on whether or not US nationals will be able to travel in France by the end of the summer season? Of course, no one has a crystal ball, so don't hold it up to the panelists in case they get it wrong by the summer season. It's just a question of feeling and how they anticipate things. So please, Janet, what is your thought on this?
Well, a difficult one. I have no crystal ball, as you say. I think it would all depend about the vaccination campaign and also how people living in France react, because now there's a bit of relaxation, if this is a word to use in English, and people are really fed up with all that, and not everyone really respects actually, social distancing, the mask and whatever they have to do. So it all depends about the discipline of people and how fast actually the vaccination campaign goes. But for the time being, the numbers are keep increasing. So I think that, I think that we'll have greater news in the next, let's say, I think we still need to wait until, again, another 1 or 2 months. But I think that, yes, there will be a charter season, and I think that the measures will be relaxed. This, I'm convinced about that. I saw a few questions regarding events. Okay, we know that we've got the Monaco Grand Prix, we've got the tennis. For now, the situation is that in May, there's no event, there's 0 event. In April, which is the first event which has been confirmed, is the tennis. What I know is the tennis, yes, there will be the tennis, the Masters, but it will be closed for the public. Now, the big question, and I saw a question for Simon from Luxembourg, the Grand Prix, this is a big question. From what I heard, and quite high in Monaco, actually, that yes, there will be a Grand Prix because they have to. It's too massive on economic side not to have one after last year. There will be a Grand Prix, but the question is, what about people? Could people actually attend or not? So maybe it depends, but maybe we follow what will happen for the tennis, meaning yes, there will be an event, but it will be not open to public. But this, I don't know. Now, what we know is that the dates have been confirmed for Monaco Yacht Show. And yes, I think this year there will be a Monaco Yacht Show. Certainly not the way we knew it. And I also think that Informa Group had to rethink a bit about how they will do things. I think they want it, probably it will be smaller events. I'm not sure as well that the big brokerage houses will commit as they used to do, because I'm sure that, I think that they will organize some closer events, really VIP event, really for their high clients, targeted to clients who really are able or are under process to acquire yachts. So for the lifestyle event, it will be 22 to 25th of September. They have mentioned that they will try to have 3 types of badges for people, to have some different corridors, specific days for specific kind of people. There will be a badge for, from what I understand, there will be a badge for clients, a badge for advisors, and a badge for trade visitors. What else? Yep, this for sure we'll hear more towards the summer season. But I think definitely, if I can say about one event which will happen this year, definitely will be Monaco Yacht Show. Okay,
so it's good to know that we can book hotels and flights for the Monaco Yacht Show.
Receiving emails from, organizing, book your hotel, and we have cancellation policies and come. So yes.
Yeah.
So I hope to see you all during the yacht show in September.
Hopefully we will be able to enjoy a yacht show in Monaco. It's always the highlight of the season, that specific yacht show. I agree with you that maybe the big brokerage houses will try to organize separate events, given the power struggle that took place before the last Monaco Yacht Show, and the recent developments in how that yacht show is organized. And I'm sure, and I agree with you, and I think everyone agrees as well, that it will be a very different one from the one we used to know. So it's we'll see how that
it will probably be more than what we're used to see in Asia, more lifestyle events type of events, rather than a Monaco Philips show. But let's see.
That's for sure.
Things are changing.
One of the trick questions that we have on the chat is, which will be the best destination for yachting this summer? So either we have a vote or a battle between panelists to determine which is the best summer destination. But if anyone wants to jump in on this, please feel free. If you think your destination will probably try to do its best to accommodate tourism as much as possible. I know it's probably not high on the French agenda, given the French really do not understand what yachting is about, but probably for other countries that know what tourism really is, maybe they'll try to accommodate these requests and perhaps come up with new regulations. If anyone has any thoughts on this?
Jean-Philippe, if I can answer, I think that Italy is ready, in my opinion, but we will see in the next few days, because the new decree will be enforced the 6th. Sardinia is already open to receive tourists and charter. I hope that soon, if the pandemic situation in Italy will change, that also other regions will be ready to open the port to the charter. And the regulation, as all of us are aware, has changed from November 1 regarding the VAT on charter, but this is the same in Italy, in France. So I think that now is also more clear for the charterer how should be paid this VAT. The lump sum reduction is now the past. Okay, it saves some exception regarding all the charter contract signed before the new rule in place. And so I think that we will have a good season, charter season, but all depend on what's happening with this pandemic.
If I may, Jean-Philippe, I mean, the talk of what will happen is really difficult at the moment because things are changing so quickly. In fact, we were discussing just before we started having an update in a few months' time to update all the various people who have so kindly logged in and who are very familiar faces. So I think it's premature. However, it's going to be very much dependent not only on how an individual country, I think, is doing with the vaccinations, but how neighboring countries as well are doing that, because obviously there's nothing more volatile and nothing more that links different jurisdictions than yachting. So it will depend on how well we're doing holistically. I think all our actions is going to affect those around us. So I think, yes, I think Monaco will happen probably this year because vaccinations by September will have kicked in quite well. I think it will be a different format for sure. I don't think we'll be having our, 500 guest parties and social events perhaps to that extent, but I think professional meetings and one-on-one consultations will happen, especially if people have taken their vaccines by then. Jean-Philippe, I don't know if I may now give a small update on what Malta has been doing, sort of looking ahead at the season. But the authorities, at the moment, we are in consultations, qua Chamber of Commerce. As you know, I chair the executive committee there to look into various COVID incentives that can be introduced this summer. So I'm hoping that the next time we meet, I will have some tangible updates. And there are also two new pieces of news following Brexit. I mean, first it's COVID, then it's Brexit. It's the only two things we've been talking about this year. But there are two things that might be of interest. So the first is that we have changed our law recently as regards registration of yachts by UK citizens. So it is now possible, post-Brexit, for UK individuals to still register yachts directly in their own name. So that's very important for current owners or UK citizens who want a new flag post-Brexit. And as regards social security of crew, we have confirmation from the authorities that UK nationals who are UK residents are no longer obliged to pay social security in Malta if they work on board Maltese registered yachts, whereas EU nationals who are UK residents would still fall within the relative obligations, because it is a question that we have had quite frequently over the past months after the cutoff date. So we'll update you further next time we meet. I think for now that is what I have to report. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. Jumping also on your comment regarding the neighboring countries, one of the questions that caught my eye on the chat was, has any jurisdiction felt the impact of Germany closing its borders recently? Has this had any impact on anyone's jurisdiction and common business? No? Okay, I guess Germany is not the stronghold of yachting yet, so probably hasn't had much of an impact. It will probably be reopened by the coming summer season. I noted one of the comments on the chat said that Netherlands were getting longer and warmer
summers. So perhaps it will be a yachting hotspot given global warming. We may all meet in the Netherlands next time if the Monaco Yacht Show does not go through. Lorna, do we have time for any other questions?
I think sadly, Jean-Philippe, we're really at the end of our time now, to be truthful. So, but thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. Thank you to our panel. And thank you to everyone out there, our audience. We've had so many questions today, and I'm sorry if we haven't been able to answer yours, but as I think a couple of people have mentioned today, if you want to follow up with people individually, I'm sure they will try their best to address any questions or issues that you have. I think Alison also mentioned that we are talking about having an update probably the beginning of May. So certainly watch this space, and we'll have the same panel hopefully back then to address any changes that we've had in those ensuing weeks. So as I say, watch this space for news on that. I did mention at the start of this that we have a recording hopefully available afterwards, subject to everyone's approval, which we can send out to you if you've missed all or part of this webinar. So just bear with us. We hope to have that ready for you by the latest at the beginning of next week. So that's all from me, that's all from us, but I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank everybody here today. We really appreciate your continuing support. Great to keep in touch with you. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thanks,
you, everybody.
Bye-bye, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.